Okay, let's bring in Luke Espe and Wilson Pak. They're the event directors for not only the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge, but also now the Syndicate Crown semifinal event. How you guys doing today?
Busy.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's an understatement right now.
Yeah. How did this whole thing with you now running a second semifinal event materialize?
Wilson, go ahead, take that one, dude.
I don't know. I just feel like everything has been pretty organic in nature. The CrossFit Games team has done a great job communicating with us certain aspects of the season that they wanted us to be incorporated in. And the extension of that came pretty recently, of whether or not we could start a new semifinal. And with having a lot more lead time than last year, we felt that our team was capable of delivering and over delivering for this upcoming season to provide as much consistency for the athletes and the fans of the sport.
And so, you know, people saw the announcement, the public got to see the official announcement of the Syndicate Crown as a second semifinal that you guys will be running. A lot of people saw that it was going to be in the same location following weekend. What was kind of the guiding force behind that decision for you guys?
I think for us, it was, are we comfortable putting out a product on the timeline that we have that's up to our standards, that we think athletes expect, spectators expect. And the only way, I mean, again, we had a proposal to, could you guys pull this off? And the only way that we felt comfortable with the quality of event that we like to do would be in the same location. So maybe with, as Wilson can speak to, maybe with a year's lead time, we can take that event somewhere else, whether that's West Coast or wherever it goes. But for this year, with the time that we had, I think that's us being comfortable with putting out something that we're proud of to the standard that we have.
Yeah. To add to that, Luke, knowing that our goal is to have as many live events as possible. I like to agree that with us being able to pull off 2021 in the height of COVID, May 2021, I think there's more optimism being able to deliver something again this upcoming spring and summer in May. So I think that if I had to guess, is a huge factor through this, right? I mean, there's still parts of the world that are still dealing with COVID, and we hope that we can provide an in-person competition across the two events.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that makes sense when you think about it in retrospect. And obviously there's going to be some knee-jerk reactions online of like, why are we going to the same place twice? Where's the West Coast event? But I'm just kind of curious because as event organizers, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. It's kind of an iceberg effect. A lot of people don't see the effort that goes into it. And so it makes sense that you would want to try and control some elements to be able to provide a better event for the athletes as well. What was the Knoxville kind of response and support in terms of being able to allow you guys to host a second event there?
I guess I can chime in. With anything, there's always moving targets. Even with the Syndicate Crown going in week one, I mean, UT's graduation is going on that same weekend, right? And so you're not just competing within the fitness space, but just the event industry as a whole. And so data availability is probably the most important thing outside of the operations of the venue. Mm-hmm. And so we just struck gold in the sense of having back-to-back or just a window within the 4 weeks of the semifinals. I think that does limit your pool within the event organizers of who's able to deliver within that particular season of the games. And so, it was almost serendipity from our perspective.
I mean, from a venue acquisition standpoint, what a lot of people don't realize is that's a month-long process in itself. Like Wilson's been all over the country multiple times where I'm flying him out to check places out. Like that's a few month process just in acquiring the venue, and then your setup and takedown. You're not done at that place until, Tuesday or Wednesday of the following week, wherever you're at. And for our team, setup starts on Monday the week before. So for us to move to a different city with the team that we have right now and the time that we have, like that's the only way that we could have done it.
You guys have been involved with the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge now for a long time in a lot of different iterations. I mean, you've done it as part of the sanctional season, and that was up in Washington, D.C. You've now done it in Knoxville as part of the semifinal process. And I'm sure you have learned a lot that has now allowed you to not only pull off one, but two events. What are the main lessons that you've learned from all the experience that you have had running this event?
Oh man. Go ahead, Luke, you can start.
Probably, I mean, I started this in 2011, I think, and we started in like an affiliate, like most people do, and then moved to venues, and then your venues kind of grow. I guess thinking about the athlete experience and putting that first, because we used to have other divisions too. Like we used to have scaled and RX, and now with like the semifinal model, like we can only do elite for this event, but it doesn't change. I think we really focus on what benefits the athlete the most, whether it's programming or venue setup or what city you're in, what their warm-up area looks like, schedule, rest periods, breakdown, all that stuff. Like if you put the athlete first, I think you're in a good boat, because the spectators will feel that, the venue feels that, the athletes feel important, they feel heard. And I think everything else kind of falls in line. So that's always been our focus, and I don't think that really changes. So
yeah, just to add to that, I think with now changing the venue again, we've never had the same blueprint for the past 4 to 5 years. We've changed cities, we've changed venues, we've changed just so many different aspects of the event. And so to kind of go back, the glue to all this has truly been the people behind the scenes. Even though while Luke and I are more front facing, I can genuinely tell you there's 10 people who are there even longer than me from day one, since 2011, 2012. And there's a lot of history behind the people who are behind the scenes, to where they started as volunteers and now they're team leads and department heads. So, I've only been with the event for 6 years, as crazy as that sounds. And I know those are during a very specific time during the season, but there are people way before me that are still part of the team to this day, that they've weathered so many storms and have trusted our vision through all this. And that vision hasn't differentiated from the athlete experience, like Luke said.
I want to know, and this is primarily because I know you guys take naming conventions very seriously. I know that last year at the MACC, us getting to call that event, there were some awesome names and inspirations behind the names. And so I think people saw the Syndicate Crown and they're like, where'd that name come from? And I know it has some history with you guys. I know that a lot of people, like the comic book nerds, know it kind of sounds like, who Ronin was fighting in Endgame, basically. But I want to know what was the inspiration behind the name and the history behind the name.
So we kind of melded two different ideas. CrossFit Syndicate was the first affiliate that I opened in 2012. It had the same little skull dude with the golden tooth. He was dope. He had a different hat. But like the old school members that are still parts of the gym that remember the CrossFit Syndicate days, like that logo will never die. You'll always see that t-shirt around. They're like, oh, when we changed the logo to 12 Laborers, people were up in arms because they were so attached to that. I don't know, the look, the color scheme, everything. And then the crown, we just switched out the crown because the crown's in our 12 Laborers logo with the lion. So it was kind of melding these two time periods where the MACC has been really the only constant in that time, because it was run by CrossFit when we were still back at CrossFit BWI days with Ryan, and then CrossFit Syndicate, and then 12 Laborers. And that event's been through a lot of changes outside of just the event. So we wanted to kind of throw back to that and kind of meld the two ideas.
Nice. It seems that CrossFit is more involved now in the semifinal process. They've already said they're going to program 2 events that all the semifinals will do, and that they listened to the feedback that the semifinal organizers gave them, and sounded like the semifinals themselves, wanted more involvement from CrossFit or direct feedback. What has been your sense of how involved they've been with you guys now that you're running 2 of these events?
There's been a lot of communication, and more than there's ever been. So that's been a really nice touch to a lot of the changes that have happened. But I think with every event having different variables thrown at them, whether it's COVID related, venue related, availability, staffing, I think they're just trying to make sure that the season can uphold a specific standard. And I can assure you that the communication has been very, very strong up to this point.
Nice. Why the move from Thompson Bowling to the Knoxville Civic Coliseum? I know we had spoken about it previously, like when we bumped into each other at Water.
Yeah,
but
for
yeah.
sure. That's a great question. It's just 5 minutes up in the other direction. So from the old venue to the new venue, it's still a 5-minute drive. I mean, you can scoot around the entire city. Everything's a 5-minute drive from here to there. But the biggest change is the venue is about 5,000 to 6,000 seats. It's a hockey arena. One of the biggest aspects is we wanted to go and lengthen the floor for storytelling. And so the width of a hockey arena is 115, and Thompson Bowling was 80. And so there's a reason we went north and south last year at Thompson Bowling, and we are now able to double the floor and go to 100 plus feet. And because the width of a hockey, or the length of a hockey arena is 200. So that was one of the things, to be able to improve the athlete experience. Once again, Luke and his programming team have a lot more space to cover, and to really help the teams and individuals get a better workout in. So that was one of the main reasons. I also think that the intimate feel of an arena with, I guess you would say, fewer seats compared to 25,000 seats in Thompson Bowling, there's going to be an energy that's going to be pretty uplifting. It's going to be, there's not a bad seat in the house. If you guys have gone to a lot of hockey games, it's all focused down, looking down, to that center point. So there's a lot of aspects that we wanted to improve upon last year that we saw behind the scenes, and we felt that this switch was going to be the right fit.
Go ahead,
Luke.
From an athlete perspective, like the quintessential CrossFit experience for me has always been tennis stadium at StubHub Center. So that feeling of like having everybody on top of you, there was no better feeling in the CrossFit space for me. And you could always see the floor. So this is raised up, so everybody's going to be above floor level. So literally, like Wilson said, there's not a bad seat in the house. I think having everybody elevated off of the floor looking down is going to be a super cool thing for the athletes and for the spectators. But
yeah, I feel like anyone who's like played sports that raised fan seating almost feels very, I don't want to say gladiatorial because that's a little intense, but it does give that feeling of like fans are on top of you, energy is on top of you, and it's like everything is directed into that moment for you to perform. And it's interesting because I feel like maybe hockey arenas are kind of like right now for the sport, like the right size and vibe in terms of energy for the sport overall. I mean, what are your personal, and with that in mind, what are your personal opinions on the two events? For us, we love it because there's comparison graphics, there's data to compare across weeks, but does that make your life easier or harder as a programmer when you don't necessarily have to program the entire slate?
Are you speaking like from CrossFit's perspective or giving us workouts?
Yeah.
I'd say a little bit of both. We had some stuff already done for the year that were like your keystone workout that you kind of build off of. And anybody else that's a programmer out there, that programs events, you usually have like one piece that's like, that's the workout. And then you build around that. So them giving you two workouts like that kind of threw our keystone workout for a loop, but we'll figure it out. It's nice to have comparison across the 2 weeks, depending on how that shakes out from where people place the workouts within the weekend, I think is something to be said, but I think it's good. I would like to see a little bit more from a comparison. I still like the old regionals models. I like the creativity that it allows people to have week to week. But I think there's pros and cons to everything. I guess I'm kind of all over the place with it, but that's kind of how I feel with it.
You both have been involved with this process now for a couple of years as far as the semifinals are concerned. Wilson, I saw you at Wadapalooza, so you know all about events and what the mood is with event organizers. With this now being the second season of the semifinals, and with so many changes that have happened already up to this point in CrossFit, what sense are you getting from just your local community and the other event organizers out there about where we are right now heading into the 2022 season?
Oh man, I think that's a super tough question because of the consistency not being there. Brands, athletes, there's just a lot of uncertainty, and I hate to use that word, but to attach to something and make, you know, huge capital investments and long-term, just commitment to things. It's harder to run an event outside of 1 year, because you just don't know how it's going to shake up. So, I mean, even our event, it started in April, you know, and then we changed the date. And so there's just so many inner workings that I joke around, but I haven't had the same budget ever, just with the venue and the type of model that we've had. And so we're honestly still in the infancy stages, believe it or not. I know we've been known as running quality events, and we're glad that we're in that conversation, but I like to think that we're still in the beginning stages of where this can go, because we haven't gone through a full cycle yet to be able to compare it. Like, I know we talk about programming a lot, but even as an event organizer, we're more critical of ourselves than anyone else. And it's hard to even know if there is a success to that metric or not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, internationally, I mean, they're still dealing with huge COVID concerns with travel and all those things. So I think that's really still the focus for a lot of international. Here in the States, I think we're pretty lucky with that. But even in Canada, I know there's still some restrictions. So I think all the changes that they've made they're showing like a positive buy-in from CrossFit to really make this work. And all the changes that are happening, I think are super positive. It's just going to take some time, because you keep having these issues with COVID and travel, and in perfect world, people that are registered in whatever country can go compete there. Is that the case for all athletes this year? I don't know. Like, it's 2022 and we're still having these conversations. So I think that's probably the biggest hurdle with all this.
I was kind of looking at the leaderboard from last year in the lead up to the interview, and both CrossFit Games champions qualified through the MACC last year.
And the team champs.
Yeah, and the team champs. And it may not necessarily mean anything beyond just a point of pride, but I'm curious what that means to you to look back on the season and be like, yeah, we got to host all three CrossFit Games champions and the two top finishers from North America on the women's side as well.
I think that's a valid point. From our staff and the people who are behind the scenes, we would treat every athlete the same. And so, I mean, for us, it's like the athlete surveys that we put out internally that we really evaluate. I mean, that's really, to us, our metric on did we run what we needed. And I feel like moving even like the venue and the broadcast components that we now considering, that there's some things that I feel like we could do better. And I feel like the venue allows the broadcast to even evolve, because most people can't get to the venue and for whatever reason, and we just understand that there's more eyeballs at home. But to be honest, while we do understand that the parity of athletes should be across all the North American events, to us, it doesn't matter as much because we would treat them all the same.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. And honestly, thank you for all your efforts and, helping the semifinal season get on track. I can't imagine, running one event, let alone two in back-to-back weeks. But, last year, I'll never forget going to the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. Tommy and I walked out on the floor, and there was just a sense of relief of that. Wow, okay, we're actually back. The event was phenomenal, and I really can't wait to see what you guys are going to do in 2022.
Appreciate it, guys. We're excited too.